Rev up your engines!
Well, MG and all the famous English company Morse Garages ages ago, decades ago, they got bought by the Chinese. They're not going to be selling their little mini EV in global markets. It is going to be called an MG. They like the idea of the English name Morse Garage. Has nothing to do with English anything, of course, but they bought the name, they may as well use it. For a while, they made MG sports cars, and they kind of failed, and then they make SUVs that are MG brand, which they make in China, and now they're going to have these little bitty electric cars. They're going to sell them all over the world. It's going to be called the MG 320. Maybe kind of like the 320i BMW. I don't know. They came up with a name. Now these things are going to start a little bit under $15,000, which is half the price of the MG electric vehicle that they already sell in China. They got a bigger one. This is going to be a mini version. Now the mini is going to have a smaller battery than their other ones. You get a choice of either a 9.3 or 13.9 kilowatt hour batteries. They're not that big. And they claim that's going to have a range of 150 kilometers, so that's like what? I don't know, 80 to 90 miles. It's an interurban type car. Mini cars, basic transportation, and hey, if they could bring those to the United States at that price range, under $15,000, I'm sure quite a few people that little runabouts would be totally happy. I got lots of customers, you know, they don't drive 30, 40 miles a day. If it's got a range of 80, 90 miles, they can recharge it at night, and they might be happy with a vehicle like that. Obviously, long-range electric cars are still going to be a real, but if you're sticking in your own location where you can charge it at home overnight, hey, that makes total sense to me. All right, check out the Ora Punk Cat. It's like a Volkswagen on steroid. Now, obviously, it looks like a Volkswagen. It is a Chinese electric car, but it's a lot bigger than the original Volkswagen. The original Volkswagens were 160 inches long, and its Punk Cat is 187 inches long, so it's quite a bit bigger. People are describing it as a Volkswagen Beetle on steroids because the original Volkswagen Beetles, you know, they barely had 45 horsepower. And this little bitty Punk Cat, giant Volkswagen on steroids, has an electric motor that puts out 295 horsepower, so it will be a screamer. Now, in a few months, they're going to be selling these things in China. There's no word of how they're going to sell them around the world, but you get a 295 horsepower giant Volkswagen Beetle. I can see a lot of people in the United States wanting to get their hands on one of these things. If they ever do sell them, or go to China and then bring them over here. A little bitty car like that with 295 horsepower would be fun to drive around. And since it's much bigger than the original Beetle, you could fit people in it easier. You'll have a better handling because it won't be too tiny. It'll be big enough so it'll have enough suspension travel that it'll ride a lot better than the Beetle did too. 589.5 says, I got a Ford Explorer with a timing chain issue. 2006 V6. An engine problem's at 145 and needs a new timing chain or a new engine. I think the mechanic has ripped her off. I don't know if he used the right oil, and he seemed to have changed it way too late. He'd let her bring it in much later than the mileage it was suggested. What can I do? All right, yeah, well, that's why you want a good mechanic. This is why I tell people really change your own oil. You buy the good oil, you buy the good filter, you know it's done right. If you don't change your oil, the oil lubricates the timing chain, it lubricates the engine bearings, it lubricates everything in the engine. If you don't use the right oil and don't change it enough, it will wear out. You could never prove anything. And it's got 145,000 miles. Fords, a lot of times, will just wear out then anyway. But this is why I tell people, change it yourself. You can do it right. Buy the right oil. The new oils, the GF6 oils, they lubricate the timing chains better. I would definitely use it in one of those engines. Her problem is, okay, let's say the timing chain is stretched for sure, but the car's got 145,000 miles. Putting a timing chain would probably be foolish. You'd better off rebuilding the whole engine. Hardly anybody knows how to rebuild them anymore. You're actually better buying a factory remanufactured engine if she wants to keep it and put the whole route in rather than fix it here and there. Fixing it piece by piece these days is kind of a stupid thing because with 145,000 miles, you fix a timing chain. Hey, maybe the head gasket will blow next. Maybe the valves will go. Maybe the piston rings are worn. Maybe the cam bearings are worn. There's so many things that wear out. You better just replace the whole engine. That's how it goes these days. Fix a little here, fix a little there. It doesn't make any sense. It'll nickel and dime you to death. Janowski says, does having your heater on reduce the temperature of an engine? If the engine is running correctly, it'll always run at the same temperature. Because when you're driving down the road, your engine puts out heat. You've got a thermostat. When the engine is cold, the thermostat is shut. So all the hot water stays in the engine, so the engine warms up faster. As soon as the engine warms up, the thermostat opens. Let's say it's a 192 degree thermostat. It'll open at 192 degrees. So your car will run between 192 and maybe 200 degrees or something, right? Say right in the middle of your temperature gauge. If you turn the heater on, the thermostat still works. If the heater starts taking so much heat the temperature goes down, then the thermostat will close. It'll always run about the same temperature. On the other hand, turning your heater on when you have a heating problem is a good idea. Say your car's starting to overheat. Well, if you turn your car's heater on, that will often take excess heat, so it'll go back to a better temperature and you won't overheat the engine. And so I tell people, say you're stuck in the middle of nowhere, your car's starting to overheat, quick turn your heater on full blast. Even if it's the summer, roll the windows down. Because if then it gets the temperature back to normal, you can at least drive it to a safe place and fix it. Because it will take extra heat off if your engine's overheating. But if your car's running normal, it'll still run about the same temperature, whether you have the heater on or off. And if you don't believe me, in the summer sometime, when your temperature's in the middle, turn the heat on full blast. You'll say it still stays pretty much in the middle on the normally running cars. But if your car's having a problem and you want it to bring the temperature down, yeah, turn the heater on. That's a great way of doing it. Charles 57 says, all my 4 tires are wearing more on the outside. I got a 2018 Tundra. All 4 tires are wearing on the outside only. I have to replace them with only 30,000 miles. I had the alignment check. The toe was out, 0.47 on the left and minus 0.07 on the front right. Springs and everything's okay. What could be causing this wear? You do have a very heavy vehicle, a Tundra, and your tires only lasted 30,000 miles. And those are the factory tires. Realize then your alignment was off. If you don't trust that guy, go to another place. Says, my alignment perfect. Tires are only going to last so long in a big, heavy truck, depending on where you drive, how you drive. Now, you said your alignments were off. You only got 30,000 miles on a vehicle. That tells me you drive in a pretty crappy area, that the roads where you live are full of potholes, or maybe you take it off-road going to country. Drive on dirt roads full of holes and rocks. That's going to knock alignment off. If I were you, I would have my alignment checked a lot more often. If those lasted 30,000 and alignment was off, I'd say every year take your car in for an alignment check and get it aligned right to make it perfect so the tires don't wear out. But you're probably going to find where you drive, if the roads stink, your tires are going to wear out unevenly. They just bang around a lot. The alignment gets knocked off, and they wear unevenly when you get to highway speeds. Realize big truck tires, they're going to wear out faster. Like they're heavy trucks. They generally are abused more than a regular car that's just driven on regular roads, and the tires will wear out a lot faster. Trigger 2001 says, I got a 2001 Chevy Blazer. It runs fine, but the short-term fuel trim Bank 1 Sensor 2 says 99%. It doesn't fluctuate. Now, is this a problem? No, it's not. That's the crazy software in GM. Took me for a ride one time when I thought, oh man, they'll often say that Bank 1 Sensor 2, 99.2%, 99.3%. That's just the way the computer software set up. Ignore it. It doesn't mean anything. Your vehicle's running fine. That's just a weird software thing on the GMs. First time I thought, oh man, what's wrong with this vehicle? Then I realized that's just a software glitch. The way that those things are written on that doesn't mean anything to you at all. If it was adding that kind of fuel, it would be running like crap. The fuel trim shows if you're adding or subtracting. Let's say it was minus 99. That would mean it's running so rich it's subtracting 99% of the fuel. Yours says the exact opposite, but that's just a software craziness on those things. Ignore that. It doesn't mean anything. It actually means it's normal. That's what it usually says when you look at those things. The Gregman says, love your channel. I'm worried about my catalytic converter breaking down in a 2011 Nissan Altima. I hear the front converter can break down and the engine can suck the materials, causing complete failure. Can you tell me if it's possible? It's kind of interesting. I would have thought just on the fact that how could it? It's pushing air through it. The engine pushes the exhaust gas out. But it is actually possible because there is some back pressure on the valves, and sometimes it can get a little bit of the exhaust back in when they open. It is actually possible. And the only reason it's possible, though, is because the knuckleheads put the catalytic converters in the exhaust manifold, which is right there. Back in the day, the earlier designs, you'd have the engine, then you'd have the exhaust pipe, and the catalytic converter would be about the middle of the car under the seats. So it was so far back that it could never suck parts in. But this is right there, and it is actually possible. I've seen it happen on the Nissans, that if the catalytic converter breaks out, it can suck stuff in. So if you hear the cat rattling, replace it. Now, if you got a car with a catalytic converter in the back and it rattles, you don't really care. But if it's in the front and the intake, yes, it can actually happen when it's on the exhaust manifold right next to the engine. It's so close the pieces can get knocked in. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.